Tov. Erev Tov. Um,
Everything.
nice to see everybody. And very good that. Okay. We are continuing with Mishle. We're in chapter 3. I'm going to put back onto the screen, put back, I didn't put it up yet at all, but put on the screen, Pasuk we're working on, which we did last week. We did part of it. We're going to finish it tonight. And more things. Deracheh Noam, referring to Torah in general, not just Chokhmah. We could say the Chokhmah of the Torah are pleasant ways. Its paths, her paths are peaceful. So we talked last week. I'll take it off here for right now. We talked last week about the idea that in every way possible, the Torah makes sure, the Chachamim through the Torah makes sure that it's always taken into consideration that Hashem wants things with their Torah based to be done in a pleasant way, even to the extent, that's where he kind of left off right at the end of the last time, that even to the extent that God forbid there was going to be a death sentence carried out, Gemara says, Borlo mita yafa, choose for him a good death. So we don't believe, God forbid, in torture. We don't believe in any of these other things. There are certain types of death penalties that are put into place. And again, as I mentioned last time, it's almost impossible for there to be an actual execution of a person because of having transgressed something. For sure, not today. I'm talking even in the time of the Beit HaMikdash. And just as an aside, similar world of almost impossibility. It's also almost impossible for someone, God forbid, who commits suicide to be denied burial in a Jewish cemetery. That used to be the party line, but to be halachically called suicide, it's extremely difficult to categorize somebody into that. And they would be allowed to be buried in a Jewish cemetery in probably every single situation. Shalom neda. We should never know from such tzarot. So the Rambam in Hilchot Deo, when he talks about his philosophical approach to Torah, to Judaism, he describes what you've probably all heard of many times over the years, either the Shvil HaZahav, the golden path, or the middle of the road path, always trying to make a balance. And extremism on either side is no good. Not to be too much this, not to be too little this, but somewhere down the middle. And for the reason, it's an assumption that the Torah's legal, ethical demands are meant not to hurt us and not to punish us, but to make us socially viable human beings, that we act in the best way possible that Hashem would want us to act. So until now, meaning last week, the last part of the class, and then just the first couple minutes tonight, we talk about what Deracheh Noam is. What I'm going to spend a few minutes on now is what it is not. It is not an excuse. I'll explain to you what I mean by that. The halacha does not have to conform to a person's contemporary moral taste. The mitzvot have to feel pleasant, that the obligation is waived because it just doesn't speak to me. I have had so many occasions over the last 30 years where, whether it's adults or teens, I've seen it both. I don't do that mitzvah because it doesn't speak to me, or it's too difficult. It goes against my beliefs. Okay, you're entitled to that belief, but it doesn't go against your beliefs, because if it's come from the Torah, it's part of who you are as a Jew. There really is no me in that equation. If Hashem commands us, now, does that mean that every Jew does every single mitzvah they potentially can perfectly? Of course not. Do we make mistakes? Of course we do. But to say, you know what, I'm just not going to say alamicha. I'm not going to daven mariv. I'm not going to. First of all, the mariv was only reshut. There was only at one point in history it was permission. You could daven, you didn't have to. And tzitzit also, there's no official chiyuv. It's only if you have a beged that has four corners, and if you put it on, I don't have to wear tzitzit. You really think the rabbis care, that God cares if I go on my phone on Shabbat and check my messages? It's a big deal, okay? Those kind of approaches which you might say, and I've never had anyone say that to me. Say, oh, it's not pleasant for me, so I'm not going to do it. I've never had someone say that. Just more, it's usually like, it doesn't speak to me. It's too much work. Just be honest. You don't want to do it. That's okay. Um, so sometimes I've had that conversation, and I know it's not necessarily a good example, but it's the only one I've come up with over the years. I said, they say I don't understand the mitzvah. I'm only going to do the mitzvah if I understand it. So first thing I tell them about is the Sefer HaChinuch, where he describes all the mitzvot, who has to do the mitzvah, when it applies, how you do it, why we have the mitzvah. So that's the first thing. But the other is I don't understand it. Even the Sefer HaChinuch, I don't want to understand it, or I don't need to understand it, or I can't understand it. So I'm not going to do it. So I asked them, you have a cell phone, right? Yes, of course. I don't know anyone who doesn't. And at the end of the day, do you charge it? Of course. Why? Because it has to be charged. It needs a battery full so I can use it tomorrow. Okay, but do you understand how electricity works? I mean, do you understand? Could you take out an electrical schematic and explain to me exactly what's happening? Well, no. I said, but you just told me you're not going to do something because you don't understand it. But you don't understand electricity. So why would you charge your phone? For that matter, why would you turn your lights on? Because you don't understand how the electrical currents work. So they understand. Usually I get like the rolling of the eyes kind of response, or, oh, that's an interesting point. I don't think I make too many points gain too many points with that kind of example, but I never say it in a sarcastic way. It may sound like I did just now, but I usually try to do it in an explanatory type of fashion. But look, the Torah commands shechita. The Torah commands brit milah. The Torah commands going to war in certain circumstances. Torah commands punishment. The Torah commands korbanot, sacrifices. None of those things on a superficial level are, pleasant. No one can say that killing an animal, oh, that's a pleasant experience. I've done shechita. It's not. I've learned bulls, cows, sheep, chicken, turkey. Been many years since I've done it, but I learned it. It's not. I found it interesting. I found it, part of the halacha to understand what I was learning the Shulchan Aruch, to then see the actual animal itself and everything else that came with it. But no one's going to say that that's a pleasant experience per se. War, as we all know, unfortunately, firsthand, it's not a pleasant experience, but it's part of what the Torah commands us. It has to be, even when we have war, there are still halachot, there's still rules. The Torah does not contradict our moral character, our moral architecture. The Torah is never just gratuitously cruel. When I say Torah, it means Hashem's word. It's not gratuitously, it's not socially destructive, it's not morally incoherent. That's why Chazal never have used the pasuk to abolish any mitzvah. There are people, and I understand that I'm not negating this. People who are, let's say,
came to visit their daughter in school here.
Hold on. Okay. That we will not abolish a mitzvah because it just doesn't sound right. So I was starting to say that someone might be a vegetarian, or they just don't. I think the idea of korbanot makes any sense because it's cruel. It might be terrible to idea of sacrifices and what's going to be at a time when we have the Beit HaMikdash Bezrat Hashem tomorrow. So when you say, okay, no more korbanot. It's not P then Q. It doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. It may be, there are opinions, if I'm not mistaken, of Cook and others, that there will only be certain types of korbanot in time when we have the Beit HaMikdash Bezrat Hashem. But that's not a reason to abolish a mitzvah. So that is that pasuk. What we'll do now is take a look at another pasuk that, again, it's one that you all are familiar with, may not have realized it comes from Mishle, and it's the next pasuk here. This one right here, there. They make it red and bold. Eitz chaim hi lemachazikim ba, v'tomcheha mi'ushar. She is a tree of life, Torah is, to those who grasp her, and whoever holds on to her is happy. I'm using the word, it translates here in Safari as happy. It doesn't necessarily mean happy. We'll see what it means in a few minutes, but it seems to be a very simple pasuk. Now, we have to understand something. This is very much something we talked about in Pirkei Avot last week on Thursday. And the same thing here. Sefer Mishle is the book of parables, Proverbs by Shlomo HaMelech was not meant to be a book of halacha. It's not what it is. But the Chachamim do, in fact, use certain things, such as this pasuk, Darchei Noam, as halacha. It works into halacha because we see it in the Gemara. And this statement that it's Chaimim Machazikim Babatomchem Ushar is not per se halacha, but it's a very, very deep when it comes to hashkafa or philosophy, Jewish philosophy. So let's see what really is going on with this. On the basic level, we know that, first of all, when do we say this? It's said generally, putting the Torah away. Other times it's said, by Sfaradim, we say it when we do, no, by Sfaradim, we do the Hagbah before, picking up the Torah before laning, before reading the Torah. And we also say that pasuk at some point while we're pointing to, before we point to the Torah even. But it has a lot more depth to it because it should sound, if you've never realized it, the word Eitz Chaim the word Eitz Chaim should immediately evoke an idea that came way before Mishle. That's Gan Eden, the very beginning of the Torah. What happens? Hashem gives command to Adam and Chava that they're not allowed to eat from the Eitz Hadat, and they can't go near they have anything from the Eitz HaChaim. Because if they eat from the Eitz HaChaim, then they'll be immortal like God. That he doesn't say that in the Torah exactly, but just I'm paraphrasing right now. But the idea that it's Eitz Chaim he, in Bereshit, the Eitz Chaim represents life that is sustained directly by Hashem. It's not human intervention, not anything else. That's what the Eitz HaChaim would have been. In Mishle, Shlomo HaMelech is identifying Torah as this continuation, the Torah itself, as a continuation of that, what's the word? Primordial, I think that's how you pronounce it, source of life. I mean, like going back to the beginning of time, that source of life. He's making that connection with the words Eitz Chaim Hi Lamachazikim Ba. Chazal also tell us that it's a deliberate claim, that Shlomo HaMelech was doing this on purpose. What Adam lost through disobedience, what did he lose? He lost the ability to have food just growing. He lost the ability to have no worries about parnasah, about income, so to speak. But he lost through disobedience. We regain through Torah. It doesn't say Torah gives life. It says Torah is life. Eitz Chaim, she is, meaning Torah, is life. It's a really important distinction. What's the difference? Let's talk about something that's not the Torah itself. If a person, God forbid, is sick and they're taking medication, the medication and they're very, very sick, could God forbid die, and they're given medication. So that medication is giving them, Hashem is giving them the life, obviously, I know that. But I'm saying that the medication is the shaliach of Hashem to give that person more time in this world. But our blood in our body, the Torah says, Ki adam hu hanefesh, that our neshama is somehow, whatever that means, is in our blood. It is life. That's our life source. The Torah is our life. It is life. It is not giving life. It is life. It also aligns with the view of the Ramban that Torah is not just an instruction book, God forbid, but it's a structure of reality. It's divine wisdom. It's Hashem's chokhmah, with which the world was formed. And when we're learning Torah, what we're doing, harking back to that moment of the Eitz HaChaim, the tree of life, every time we're learning Torah. The fact that it says Eitz Chaim Hi is also important because it uses the feminine language. What's it referring to? Because Eitz it should be who. So it can be referring to many levels here. Number one, Torah itself, obviously. That's number one. Eitz Chaim Hi, it is the life, the tree of life, meaning the Torah. The Chokhmah, wisdom. Shechina, Hashem's divine presence. All these things fall into the category of the feminine in the language, and the implication, of course, is all these possibilities. I'm going to sneeze, I think. maybe not, our life. Torah is not an object to master, but it's something we want to attach to. We want to learn as much Torah as possible. We want to incorporate as much Torah as possible. But to understand the same thing, just like a husband and wife, it says, that he shall cling to his wife, and they'll be as one flesh. So too, we want this dvekut with Hashem, this connection to God. And how do you do that? Mara says, how can you connect to God? But God is Esh Ochla, Hashem is a consuming fire. So we do it through learning His Torah. So, but by doing that, we also have to understand that we are clinging, in a sense, in quotes, to the Eitz Chaim that was in the Gan Eden, and is the source. It is the life source. Also important. It says, look again, once it's very important to look at a pasuk, especially one that you know very well already, and look at it with a different perspective. It doesn't say Eitz Chaim hi lelomdim. It doesn't say it's a tree of life for those who learn. It doesn't say it's a tree of life for scholars. It doesn't say it's a tree of life who know Torah. It says it's a tree of life, the machazikim. What's lehachzik? To hold on to cling to refuse to let go. When you are standing and it's very, very windy outside, and you're about to be blown down. We had this windstorm a few days back, a week ago? I was walking home from shul, and I was coming around a curve, and this gust literally almost blew me off my feet, and it was hit me right near a pole. I grabbed a hold of it. So you grab on, because you understand that grabbing on will ground you, will make you not to fall. You refuse to let go. And that's critical difference between saying it is an Eitz Chaim hi for those who know Torah, or learn Torah, versus machazik, to hold on to it, because it amplifies this whole idea that just in a storm, or God forbid, a person's hanging at the edge of a cliff, that they want to hold on to something so they don't fall. We are. If you go look at the introduction to Mesilat Yesharim from Ramchal or Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, you see the same idea that you need to hold on to the Torah in a physical and in a metaphorical sense, to ground you, to keep you close to Hashem, and for life. The Malbim makes a comment that there's this constant instability in life. Nobody, and I mean nobody, has anything guaranteed in life. Just because a person woke up this morning doesn't mean they're going to wake up tomorrow, God forbid. There's nothing guaranteed in this world. Right now, we're living in a period here in the world, but especially here in Israel, of tremendous instability when it comes to what's about to maybe happen in Iran. And we're at the point, for many people I know, we're making light of it, and make sure it's like not in the middle of the night, to make sure we've had lunch and we have our coffee, and then we can go up to Mamat, whatever it might be. But we are always in a period. We are always in life. It's instability. Doesn't mean people don't have stable lives. Baruch Hashem, you get up and you go to shul and you work and you daven and you have fun. And you see your kids and your grandkids. All these things. That's a form of stability, but there's no guarantees. The Malbim tells us that when we hold on to the Torah, again in a metaphorical sense and a literal sense, that it helps us with clarity. It helps us with comfort. When the Torah inspires us, the Torah gives us life. It's a life source. It doesn't give us. I said it doesn't say noten. It says it is life. Because life is not the absence of struggle. Because without struggle, there really is. It's not much of a life. It means that its meaning. The meaning of life is surviving the struggle. Some people have struggles that are minor, in quotes, like they're trying to find a parking place. Some people have bigger ones, like they just, God forbid, lost a job and have no other place to go to work. They may, God forbid, have infertility or have problems with shidduchim, have problems with parnasah, with health. There's always something out there. We all have struggles in life. And that's what life is. But what Torah gives us is this ability to understand and to ground us, that we can get through the struggle with Hashem's help. So on the one hand, it says, it's the first half of Pasuk. The second half of the pasuk says v'tomcheha me'ushar. Those who are supporting Torah are, let's just say for now, are happy. What does that mean? Why repeat this almost same thing? You're machaziking the Torah or you're supporting Torah. Why say both things? The Vilna Gaon tells us that machazikim are those who actively grasp the Torah, and tomcha are those who support it when they don't hold it directly. What does that mean? A person can do both in theory. I can sit and learn, and I can support an institution of Torah. That's great. I've done both. I've got the Eitzchayim Hina Machazikim Ba, and I have the Tomcheha, those who are supporting Torah are happy. Again, I'm coming back to that word in a few minutes. But there are those who either can't because they don't have the ability, or they don't have the structure, or don't have the belief in themselves. They don't necessarily believe they can sit and learn Torah. So what do? They support Torah institutions. That's fantastic. That's great. A tomech, a supporter, enables others to learn Torah. They live by Torah values, even without mastering the Torah itself. And they are the ones also who help to defend Torah ethically, spiritually, morally, but there's still a deeper level. A tomech is someone who may not carry the full weight, but without them, the structure collapses. What does that mean? If every person who helps support Torah institutions, God forbid, overnight stopped sending funds to Torah institutions, there would be a massive collapse. People would still learn, but maybe not to the same degree. Maybe they're not the same amount of numbers. And yes, we can argue about this all day long. That's not the point. But learning institutions need tomchim. They need people supporting it. It's not like anyone's just giving out billions of dollars to say, okay, here you go. Just go ahead and make, here's your money for your institution. People have to go. That's why there are people who go out and collect money. That's why there are people who have fundraisers and all these other wonderful things. But again, the tomchim is a tomech is someone who leans or supports. They're not carrying the full weight, but without them, the structure of Torah, the communal structure, potentially collapse. No one stands alone in front of this Eitz HaChaim. No one stands alone when it comes to this tree of life. I want to make sure it's very clear that in no way, shape, or form would I denigrate someone who wants to support learning of Torah and they themselves don't sit and learn, because both are important. Yes, it's important for the one who's supporting to sit and do some learning as well, but without the person who's doing that, there are others. They're the enabling of those to learn. They're again going back to a class we had recently in Pirkei Avot. It has to do with a statement that's made in chapter 4 that loosely translated means that a person is not allowed to make money from Torah, which sounds like you can't teach and make money. Can't be a teacher, can't be a rabbi, can't be any of these things that make money off of it. And that's actually the Rambam's Shita. And the Rambam himself says, I know that nobody else agrees with me. And there are all kinds of reasons why it's okay, and schar batala, and all kind of other things. But the fact is that we need everybody. We need people who are going to learn, people who are going to support learning, and people who are going to be able to do both. I kept saying that the word me'ushar doesn't necessarily mean happiness. Even though we say Ashrei Yoshev V'techa, Ashrei Ish Asher Halach B'atzat V'shayim, we translate it it's translated in most places as happy as the man. But Aleph Shin Resh as a shoresh doesn't necessarily mean joy only. It could also mean straightness. Like Ashrei Ha'ish Asher Halach B'atzat V'shayim can mean that a person who doesn't walk in the path of the Rashayim, of the evil, is a straight individual. Me'ushar doesn't necessarily mean happy. It could also mean properly oriented, could be stable. But the pasuk is not a promise. It's really important to understand that. It's not a promise of pleasure or ease of success. He said, okay, he's going to be happy. So you can't say he's going to be necessarily happy. It just means that he's living a life that's straight, the way it's supposed to be. It does promise a life, in a sense, that's not crooked. A life that maybe makes sense from within, a life that may even be painful sometimes, but it is going to be a life that is going to be straight. There are people, I'm sure we all know people like this, who have given up a lot of money because they didn't want to do the wrong thing. They knew that it was not proper. I had an interesting conversation with somebody who had a din Torah, went to a Beit Din. I'm not going to say it's here in the United States to make a difference. And he had called me for advice on the din Torah. And I said, I'm not going to give you my opinion. He was a friend of mine. The reason I didn't give my opinion is because the other party said that he knew me, and that if I said whoever was correct is going to be correct, he's willing to accept it. I said I won't give it a ruling because first, I'm not a Beit Din, and second of all, I don't want to ever stick in the other person's head that if I ruled for my friend, that I did it only because he was my friend. I would never want to get in such a situation, so I sent him to the Beit Din. And he messaged me it was a few months ago. He said that my friend, lost the din Torah. He said, I'm fine with it. He said, it's the way it is, because what does it mean to go to din Torah? And that's not off topic. It's exactly this topic. It means that you're living by the rules of Torah. If I steal 100 shekel from you, then there's consequences to that. It's not just because it's a societal norm. It's because it's a Torah halacha. If I damage your car and it's my fault, I have to pay for that. Again, not because of society, not because of civil law only, but because halacha demands that. So when someone comes to me and says he lost, and it's evidently a significant amount of money, I don't know, it wasn't millions, but it was a significant amount of money, and he said, I accept it. That's just the way, that's Torah. Then he is not just a Tomech Torah, he's also Machazik Torah, because he's actually saying this Torah that I'm holding in my hand, it's real. I'm living by this. The structure of the pasuk is also important. It starts off with word Eitz Chaim. Eitz Chaim is more of a cosmic, metaphysical, kind of hard to, like I talked about, it harkens back to the idea of Gan Eden, something obviously it's very hard for our minds to wrap themselves around. And Machazikim is an individual spiritual struggle, because the Hachazik b'Torah doesn't mean just to physically, metaphorically hold the Torah, but it means, as we said, we go through spiritual struggles, some more often than not. Tomcheha is communal. This is societal responsibility. It goes from the individual, for the person who's machazik, the Torah, now to a community that helps to support Torah institutions. And Ushar is an existential outcome. It's something, it's not accidental. This pasuk is doing this on purpose. It really takes into consideration the whole, whatever you call vector, arc, whatever, of the Torah's role in our lives, from creation, personal emunah, and what we do by keeping Torah, social structure, and the results that we can stand before Hashem upright and not being proud. Or we can be proud, not full of pride. It's okay. I can say, I learned today. I did a good job. I'm happy with that. I should have learned more. That's always true. But you know what? I did do some learning today, and I did stay, and I did have my routine. I use that in quotes of learning today. I don't mean just me. I'm saying in person in general. It's important to also understand this pasuk is not praising. It's a diagnosis. It says that it tells us what life is. It tells us how life should be, what our commitments in life should be. It tells us about who sustains that Torah and what it can produce. Eitz Chaim is not nostalgia for Gan Eden. That's not what it's about. It's, Eitz Chaim Chazikim Ba'o, we should have still have the tree of life from Gan Eden. It's the idea that a Gan Eden can be rebuilt, obviously in quotes, but only when we live through the light of the Torah, when we support the Torah world, and that's how we're going to be able to do that. I'm going to take a look at the next pasuk, and then also take a look at a couple more ideas I want to share with you. Come on. Here we go. Next pasuk. This one here. Bold. And let's do this one a different color. Blue. Okay. I'll read the whole pasuk so I can use Hashem's name. Adonai b'chochma yasad aretz konen shamayim bitvuna. Over here in English, by here. And that's not it. This one. God founded the earth by wisdom and established the heavens by understanding. So there's 4 words here that we have to take a look at. that Hashem b'chokhmah yasad aretz, he founded the earth. Konen is to establish, and we have the word chokhmah, and we have the word tvuna. They seem to be similar ideas of intellect, and we've talked about the differences in them before, but we have a full pasuk to take apart here. But before we do that, it's important to take a look at something we say in Mariv. And sometimes because we say things all the time, they escape us. Mariv starts off. With his word, he makes it evening. B'chokhmah, with wisdom. Potech sharim, he opens up the gates, heavens, whatever else you want to think. Ubitvuna, and with wisdom or with intellect and insight, mishana itim, he changes the seasons. Machalipet zmanim. In other words, we already have in tefillah words that automatically bring us back. We have it in Shacharit as well, especially on Shabbat. The Chokhmah and Tvuna that bring us back to this pasuk in Mishle. Not to mention, of course, that depending on what Nusach you daven, in Atachonel Adam Dat, you have Chokhmah, Bina, and Dat. Okay, but right now I'm just going to focus on the word Chokhmah and Tvuna, which are the two words that appear in this pasuk. Here you have Chokhmah, here you have Tvuna. So what's going on over here? Let's see if I have one more I was going to do afterwards. Yeah, I actually want to do this first. I want to look at the pasuk first again, translate again. I want to see this commentary before we move on to whatever else I wanted to say. This time I'm going to point out something more. Hashem b'chokhmah yasad aretz. Hashem with wisdom, he established, past tense, the earth. Konen, present tense, he founded the earth. Konen shemaim bitvuna. In present tense, he says, establishes the heavens by understanding. So why, when it comes to the earth, is it chokhmah, wisdom? And why is it in past tense? And why, when it comes to shamayim, the heavens, it doesn't just mean the sky. It means all the stuff in the heavens, in the sky. It's using the verb bina, of intellect, and it's in present tense. So let's take a look. I hope the question's clear. Makes it a little bit bigger. Okay. This is a commentary of Rishon LeZion al Mishle, which is the not the Ben Ish Chai, the Orach Chaim, if I remember right. So he starts off with this question I just answered. Lama ba'aretz amar yasad. Why does he use the verb to founded when it comes to the earth? Vashamayim amar konen. When it comes to the world or to the heavens, he refers to it as konen. He established. Gam also. Lama ba'aretz amar lashon avar. Why, when it comes to the idea of the foundation of the earth, it uses it in past tense? He founded it. Lashon avar yasad kvar, as if he had already founded it. Uvashamayim amar lashon hoveh. And when it comes to the heavens, he says it in present tense. Ayala lamar lashon hoveh bishnehem. Either it should be both in present tense, or lashon avar bishnehem, or both should be in past tense. You'll see this in Tanakh. This is a wonderful tool. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure I'm right. A person who learns in the Gush, in the Yeshiva in the Gush Etzion, this is very common type of approach. One of the things that is taught in Gush is the idea of text. Look at the words, look at the words, look at the words. Not just all the pshat and everything, the commentaries and everything goes on. Just look at the words, the pasuk, text. And then you'll see that in all the svarim that come out from the teachers and former students of Gush Etzion's yeshiva. This is their shita. So this is very much a Gush type of thing, even though we're not talking about some of the Gush who wrote this, obviously. So why is it using these two different verbs? Second of all, why is it one in past tense and one's in future? One's in past and one's in present. V'nireh, it appears to me. The heavens go in a pattern, on a consistent pattern, as opposed to the earth. It's founded. He said that the earth is fixed. It doesn't travel, it spins on its axis, correct? It doesn't except go a circle around the sun. That's all it's doing. So he says he founded it in a fashion that means it's a done deal. Uva shamayim einake. In the heavens, it's not the same thing. And when it comes to the heavens, he doesn't use the word yasad. V'amar konen, he said he established. Liot she'na miusedet. It is not founded, meaning it doesn't have a foundation. You look up in the sky, we know that many of the stars you're looking at don't exist anymore. The light just hasn't, the explosion hasn't reached our vision yet, and maybe not for centuries. We know that they're called falling stars. We know that they're black holes. We know that all these other things, there's all kinds of stuff going on out there. So it's not a fixed thing like the earth is. So every day there's a difference in what's going on in the movement in the heavens and the stars. Okay, I'm not going to go the rest of this right now because we're going to see a different commentary, but not tonight, why we use the verb yasad and one he uses the verb konen. But let's just keep that pasuk here for a minute. Look at it again before we go into what I want to other commentary. Again, Hashem chachma yasad aretz konen shamayim bitvuna. By the way, just as a side, because I'm a nerd and I like grammar, when you have a word that has a segel and sound, two of them, like emet, eretz, gefen, if it's at the end of a pasuk or an etnachta pause, which is this, the first usually, not always, becomes a kamatz, an a. So instead of saying yasad eretz, it's yasad aretz. It's almost always like that, not necessarily always. Just saying. Okay. So now I want to talk about the pasuk itself, besides just the questions. The pasuk is really the architecture of the universe, in a sense, and the place of wisdom, chokhmah, in that architecture. First of all, it's important to understand chokhmah and tvuna, or bina, are not synonyms. Chokhmah is wisdom. Tvuna is intellect, insight. And we said that chokhmah applies to the world, to the earth, and that tvuna or bina applies to the shamayim. The distinction also brings into account what I mentioned earlier, chokhmah, bina, and da'at. According to Vilna Gaon, chokhmah is a raw insight, like a flash of brilliance. It's the seed of an idea before it's processed. Again, if you go back and learn Tanya, if you've learned it, if you haven't learned it, it's the beginning of an idea. I'll give you an example of what this means. It means the beginning of an idea. If you take a look at a building, you say, where'd the building come from? So the building came from people who took raw materials and built it. So where'd the raw materials come from? Well, the wood came from trees and the metals came from the earth and everything else. Great. And why did they bring them to the job site? Because there was a blueprint. Well, where'd the blueprint come from? Well, someone had to put on paper the idea of what this building was going to look like. I'm skipping many steps on purpose. Where'd the idea come from? Up here. It starts in the mind, in the chokhmah. This is very, very much in Tanya, where the idea initially starts in the mind. That's chokhmah. That's Hashem's chokhmah, so to speak. Because I say so to speak because we can't understand what Hashem's chokhmah means. We're using our terminology. Is what founded the earth. And tvuna, or bina, is the analytical unfolding of that insight in the structure of the universe. It brings the brilliance, the divine brilliance into being. When you stand outside, if you're able to, and it's a clear night and it's dark enough, and you just look up into the sky, it mentions it a couple of times in Tehillim actually, and say like, who created, like in a sense, in a rhetorical sense, look up the sky and say, who created all of this? Only Hashem could have done that. What you're looking at is, you're looking at stars, you're looking at planets, but what you're really looking at is the architecture, the tiny, 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 tiniest of slivers of the architecture of Hashem's universe. It is beyond human comprehension to understand how vast the universe really is. to liaseder ta'aretz, to found the earth, so to speak, or to lay the foundation of the earth requires chokhmah. Requires chokhmah, and it required physical, material, practical items: soil, society, an economy. Halacha, living is reality. That's why does it require chokhmah though? Because this world, the world that we live in, not the Shemaim, the world here that we live in on this earth, is governed by discrete, concrete rules. There's laws of nature, there's limits of matter. Probably the most well-known rule of nature is that matter can neither be created nor destroyed. What does that mean? I have a piece of paper. If I tear it up, it's still a piece of paper. If I burn it, it becomes a gas. If I crush something, it is as much as I can. You cannot destroy anything so that it doesn't exist in some form of some shape or form, nor can you create what's called ex nihilo, something yesh me'ayin, something out of nothing. Only Hashem could do that. So these are rules that are built in the foundation of this world, and that required that the chokhmah of the building blocks, what Hashem did with our earth. The Malbim tells us that chokhmah governs the rules of existence, and tvuna governs the interrelationship, which means that earth first has to exist. It has to stand. It has to function. It has to be proper, whatever. It has to follow the rules that Hashem invested into it. And then it's also part of the Shemayim. It's part of Hashem's universe, but it is, in a sense, a spectator. It's watching that universe. I started to say before, when you are standing outside at night and you do see the moon, and you do see, we're used to seeing these things. We're used to seeing stars. We're used to seeing that. But there's an interesting app that I put on my phone. I've only used it a couple of times so far. And I'm sure some of you have this on your phone, that you can point your phone up to the sky, and it shows you every star, stationary, and one that, if it's dying, it gives you the name. It shows you constellations. It shows you the planets. It is fascinating. I've never been down to Mitzvah Moon, but I do want to get there one day just to do the stargazing. And it's not a matter of, it's just because it's cool. I happen to like astronomy and I like all the stuff like that. But because what you're really doing is you're entrenching in yourself, not just the marabu ma'asech Hashem, how great is your work, God, but also you're seeing the bina, the intellect of Hashem, the master creator, the master architect of the universe. And how can we just let that literally pass by without recognizing it? Okay, so there's a little bit more to say on this pasuk, but I'm going to wait until Bezrat Hashem till next week. In the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful evening and day, and pray for those people who are stuck in the bitter cold, snowy areas in the United States. There's a lot of problems there right now.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're very welcome, and hope you're going to be able to get out of your place tomorrow there, Amuna.
Wednesday, I hope so. Please, God.
I hope so. And we won't rub it in. That was about Fahrenheit, about 65 degrees today. Wind chill was 60. So I won't rub that in.
So unfair.
I know.
Oh, gosh. Well, why